The sky above Seoul burned with light that wasn't the sun. Minyu stood on the roof of the United Nations building, watching the massive ships descend through the clouds. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Silver metal that seemed to bend light itself. Shapes that hurt to look at for too long. "They're here," said beside him. Her hand rested on her sidearm, though they both knew it would be useless. "What do we do?" "We talk," Minyu replied. "It's all we can do." The ships had appeared 3 days ago, first as dots in the telescope images, then as growing shapes in orbit. The world had panicked. Militaries mobilized. Religious leaders prayed. Scientists worked around the clock trying to understand what was happening. Then the message came, broadcast in every language on Earth simultaneously. "We are the conquered, we come to judge." Minyu was chosen to speak for humanity. He didn't know why. Maybe because he'd spent his life negotiating peace between nations. Maybe because he was good at staying calm when others couldn't. Maybe because someone had to do it and he didn't say no. The largest ship landed in the center of the city. It didn't crash or break the buildings. It simply appeared on the ground as if it had always been there. A doorway opened and they came out. They were tall, taller than any human. Their skin shifted colors like oil on water. They had 4 arms and eyes that glowed with a soft blue light. When they moved, it was graceful, like dancers. But there was something else in the way they looked at humans. Something that made Minyu's stomach turn. "Pity." The leader approached. He wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere at once. "I am High Judge of the Conquered. We have come to assess your species." Minyu stepped forward, his legs shaking but his voice steady. "I am Minyu, I speak for Earth. Welcome." Tilted his head. "You welcome those who come to judge whether you should live or die." The words hit like a punch. Around them, the security forces tensed. His hand tightened on her weapon, but Minyu raised his hand, keeping everyone calm. "Yes," he said, "because we believe in giving others a chance to see who we truly are." For a long moment was silent. Then he gestured with one of his 4 hands. "Show me your world." The next 7 days were the longest of Minyu's life. He took everywhere. To hospitals where doctors saved lives. To schools where children learned. To museums filled with art and history. To memorials of wars long past. But saw everything. He saw the scars on the planet from the climate wars. He saw the nuclear weapons still hidden in silos. He saw the poverty and the violence that still plagued parts of the world. He saw humanity's shame laid bare. On the 7th day, they stood in what used to be Singapore. The city was ruins now, destroyed in the wars 20 years ago. Radiation still made parts of it dangerous, but people were slowly returning, rebuilding. "Why do you show me this?" asked. "Do you not understand? I am here to decide if your species deserves to exist. These ruins prove you are violent, destructive, dangerous." "Yes," Minyu said quietly. "We are all of those things, but look closer." He pointed to a building being reconstructed. Humans and robots worked together, lifting steel beams. On the side of the building, someone had painted a mural. It showed the old city burning and then rising again, green and alive. "We know what we were," Minyu continued. "We know what we did, but we're trying to be better. Doesn't that count for something?" Was silent for a long time. Then he said something that surprised Minyu. "I will show you something in return." He touched a device on his wrist and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed another planet, beautiful and blue like Earth. But as they watched, ships appeared in the sky. Ships. The planet below began to burn. "This was the," said softly. They were a young species, violent, warlike. They had just discovered nuclear weapons. By our law, such species must be cleansed before they can spread their violence to the stars. Minyu felt sick. "You destroyed them." "Yes, as we have destroyed 63 other species. It is our duty to protect the galaxy from those who would harm it." Turned to look at Minyu. "And you are next on our list." Then why are you showing me this? Minyu demanded. Why waste 7 days if you've already decided? His eyes seemed to dim. Because I am tired, Minyu of Earth. I am tired of burning worlds. I am tired of watching children die because they were born to the wrong species. He gestured and the hologram changed. Now it showed, but they looked different, younger somehow, less advanced, and above them different ships, a species Minyu didn't recognize. Long ago we were like you, said, violent, destructive. Another species came to judge us, but they showed us mercy. They taught us instead of destroying us. We became what we are because they gave us a chance. Then give us the same chance, Minyu pleaded. I want to, said, but the conquered has laws, and those laws exist for a reason. That night walked alone through the ruins of Singapore. He found a school, half collapsed but still standing. Inside, the walls were covered with children's drawings. They showed families, pets, homes, dreams of the future. One drawing caught his eye. A child had drawn the stars, and reaching up toward them was a small figure. Under it were words in clumsy handwriting. I want to see what's out there. Stood there for a long time, looking at that drawing. The next morning, he gathered the human leaders. His face was unreadable as he spoke. The conquered has made its judgment. Humanity is guilty of violence, of destruction, of nearly killing its own world. By our law, you should be cleansed. The room held its breath, but continued, I invoke the right of mercy. It has been used only twice in our history. I use it now for the third time. He looked directly at Minyu. You have 100 years. Prove that you can be better. Prove that mercy is not wasted on you. We will not contact you again, but we will be watching. Turned to leave, then stopped. We were once like you. We were granted mercy when we deserved destruction. I grant you what was granted to us. Do not waste it. The ships lifted off that afternoon, vanishing into the sky as suddenly as they had appeared. Minyu stood on the roof again, watching them go. What now? Asked. Minyu smiled, though his eyes were wet with tears. Now we prove him right. We have 100 years to become worthy of the mercy we were given. He looked up at the stars, and for the first time in his life, they didn't seem so far away. We have work to do. Had been 8 years old when they came. He remembered watching the ships on television, holding his mother's hand as she cried. He remembered his father saying, everything changes now. His father had been right. 50 years later, stood in his laboratory, looking at the equation that had consumed his life. The answer to faster-than-light travel, the key to the stars. Run it again, he told his assistant. We've run it 40 times, doctor. The math is perfect. Then run it 41 times, said. We can't afford to be wrong. The world had united after the left. There was no other choice. Humanity knew they were being tested, watched, judged. Every nation, every person, every dream suddenly had the same goal: survive, prove worthy, reach the stars. The wars ended within 5 years, not through peace treaties or negotiations, but through simple necessity. Fighting each other seemed ridiculous when aliens might come back to destroy them all. Resources that once went to weapons now went to science, education, medicine. The climate was fixed within 20 years. New technologies, developed in frantic collaboration between nations, began healing the planet. Deserts turned green. Oceans cleaned themselves. The air became pure again. Within 30 years, humanity had permanent bases on Mars and Europa. They weren't just outposts. They were cities, places where children were born who had never seen Earth. But it wasn't enough. Humanity needed to go further. They needed to prove they were worthy of mercy, and they needed to do it themselves without help or guidance. That's where came in. Doctor, his assistant's voice pulled him from his thoughts. The simulation just completed. It works. The drive works. Felt his heart race. He walked to the screen, reading the numbers, reading them again, then again. My God, he whispered, we did it. 3 months later, Captain stood on the bridge of humanity's first true starship. They'd named it the Soul's Promise. It was massive, built in orbit over Mars by workers from every nation on Earth. "All systems ready, Captain," her first officer reported. Looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there they were watching. Somewhere out there they expected humanity to fail, to destroy themselves, to prove that mercy had been wasted. "Take us to Alpha," she ordered. "Let's show them what we can do." The Soul's Promise vanished from Mars orbit, crossing 4 light-years in the blink of an eye. When it arrived at Alpha, let out a breath she didn't know she'd been holding. "We made it," she said. "Send the message home. Tell them we made it." Back on Earth, received the message and cried. His entire life's work had been for this moment. Humanity could reach the stars. They weren't trapped anymore. But the Soul's Promise found something else at Alpha, something they didn't expect them to find. "Captain, there's a structure in orbit around B," the science officer reported. "Artificial, definitely not human." "Felt cold, is it?" "Scanning now. Yes, Captain, it matches the energy signatures from their ships, but it's old, very old, and it's not active." They approached carefully, ready to jump away if needed. But the station was dead, abandoned. When they boarded it, they found it full of monitoring equipment, all pointed toward Earth's direction. "They were watching us," said, "just like promised." "Captain," her engineer called, "look at this. The logs. The last entry is dated 30 years ago." 30 years. They had stopped watching just 30 years after they left. Either they'd given up on humanity or they'd stopped caring. Felt anger rise in her chest. They'd spent 50 years living under the shadow of judgment, changing everything about their society, and they hadn't even bothered to watch. "Keep searching," she ordered. "I want to know everything." Over the next 5 years, humanity spread out from Alpha. They found more monitoring stations, more abandoned equipment, and they found something else. Ruins. Captain was the first to report them. His ship, the Slight, had traveled to a system the monitors had flagged as cleansed. "There's a planet here," he reported. "It's dead, but there are ruins, cities. Billions of them must have lived here once." The science teams that followed found more. These weren't ancient ruins. The species that lived here had been advanced. They'd had space travel. They'd had art and culture and dreams. And they had killed them all. On the planet's surface, they found a memorial, a massive stone structure that had somehow survived. On it were images of ships attacking from space. Below the images were words in an alien language. It took months to translate. When they finally did, read the words and felt sick. "We reached for mercy. They gave us death. May any who find this remember the spare no one." Humanity found 63 worlds like that one. 63 species that they had cleansed to protect the galaxy. Men, women, children. Entire civilizations erased because they were judged and found wanting. Brought the evidence back to Earth. She presented it to the United Earth Council. The room was silent as they watched the recordings, read the translations, saw the mass graves. "They've been doing this for thousands of years," she said. "We're not special. We're just the latest species they decided to judge." "But they showed us mercy," someone argued, "invoked the right of mercy." "They used it twice before," said quietly. "I've been researching. Do you know what happened to those species? Neither do I. There's no record of them anywhere. Either they failed the test or they killed them anyway." The room grew cold. "So what do we do?" the council leader asked. We prepare. It's been 60 years since they left. We have 40 years left in their timeline, maybe less if they come back early. We need to be ready." "Ready for what?" "For whatever happens next." Humanity spent the next decades building. Not just ships and weapons, though they built those too. They built defenses, networks of sensors throughout human space, shields around Earth and Mars, plans for evacuation if needed. But they also built something else. They built a civilization worth defending. They rescued endangered species from Earth and spread them to new worlds. They created art and music that echoed through the stars. They wrote philosophy and poetry about their place in the universe. Became famous for his unity doctrine. It was simple. Humanity had been shown mercy when they didn't deserve it. If they survived, if they proved worthy, they would show the same mercy to others. They would break the cycle of judgment and death. The judge species based on their worst moments, wrote. We will judge species, including ourselves, based on their potential, on who they can become, not who they were. It became the foundation of human expansion. Every world they settled, every species they encountered, every decision they made was guided by that principle. 110 years after the left, humanity controlled 50 systems. Billions of humans lived among the stars. They'd rebuilt Earth into a paradise and turned Mars into a garden world. They'd found 3 other species in their expansion, all primitive, all afraid. Humanity had protected them, taught them, helped them grow, not because they had to, because had done the same for them. But they never forgot the 63 dead worlds. They never forgot the warning carved in stone, the spare no one. On Earth in Geneva, there was a memorial. It listed all 63 species they had destroyed. At the bottom were words that every human child learned. They were judged and found wanting. We were judged and given mercy. We will remember both. We will be worthy of the mercy we received, and we will never judge as the judged. Above the memorial, visible even from space, was a light that never went out, a beacon pointing toward the stars. Toward whatever came next. The patrol ship detected the human vessel before it detected them. Commander, or studied the readings with confusion. That cannot be right, he said. Check again. His sensor officer worked the controls. Confirmed, Commander. It's a human ship, but it's moving at velocities that should be impossible for them. They're not supposed to have FTL capability. Or felt uneasy. The humans had been granted mercy 110 years ago. They should still be confined to their home system, slowly developing. Instead, this ship was deep in space. Hail them, he ordered. The response came immediately. A human face appeared on the screen, female, young, with calm eyes. This is Captain of the colony ship New Spring. We're on a peaceful mission to establish a settlement in the 442 system. Who am I speaking with? You are in territory, Or said, trying to sound authoritative. By what right do you claim these systems? Smiled. It wasn't a hostile smile, but it wasn't afraid either. We checked our star charts. This system isn't listed as territory. It's unclaimed. We're following the Galactic Settlement Protocols. What protocols? Who gave you or stopped? Humans shouldn't know about galactic protocols. They shouldn't even have star charts. How did you get this far from Earth? We built ships, said simply. We developed FTL travel. We've settled 49 systems so far. Number 50 is waiting for us at 442. The communication ended, or stared at the empty screen, mind racing. This was impossible. 50 systems in 100 years. That had taken 500 years to do the same. Get me high command, he ordered, and track that human ship. I want to know where they're going. 3 days later, stood in an observation deck of the flagship. He was old now, ancient even by his species' long-lived standards. He'd been young when he judged Earth. Now he was near the end of his life. And he couldn't believe what he was seeing. The human colony ship hung in space before them, massive and elegant. Around it, dozens of smaller ships moved in perfect coordination. They were building a space station in orbit around a beautiful green world. That's their 50th colony, his aide reported. We've confirmed settlements in 49 other systems. Population estimates put humanity at over 12 billion, spread across multiple worlds. His 4 hands trembled. In 100 years. 110, High Judge. They've exceeded every projection, and there's more. The aide pulled up images. They've encountered 3 other species during their expansion, all primitive. The humans have protected them, educated them, helped them develop. Protected, repeated. Not enslaved, not conquered. No, High Judge. The humans appear to follow a doctrine of mutual aid. They call it the Unity Doctrine. Before could respond, an alarm sounded. His aide's face went pale. High Judge, we have multiple contacts. Human warships jumping into the system. How many? 37. No, wait, more appearing. 52. 61. High Judge, they're surrounding us. Watched as human vessels materialized from FTL all around the fleet. They were massive, advanced, bristling with weapons he couldn't identify. They had 7 ships. The humans had over 60. A communication request came through, accepted it. A human male appeared on screen, older with gray hair and a military bearing. Behind him could see a bridge full of efficient, calm crew members. I am Admiral of the United Earth Fleet, the human said. You've been monitoring our colony ship. That makes us nervous. I am, he replied. High Judge of the Conquered. I judged your world 110 years ago. For a moment's expression changed. Recognition. Then something else. Not anger, not fear, something more complex. So you're the one who granted us mercy, said. We've wanted to meet you for a long time. To thank me, asked. That too, admitted. But also to ask you some questions. Questions about the 63 species you destroyed before you got to us. The air seemed to freeze. You know about those, said quietly. We found their worlds, replied. We read their warnings, we saw what you did to them. He leaned forward. We want to know why. It is our law, our duty, to protect the galaxy from dangerous species. And who decides what's dangerous? Demanded. You're conquered. What gives you the right to judge entire civilizations? Had no answer. He'd asked himself the same questions for decades. We're not here to fight, continued. Despite what you might think, we're inviting you and your fleet to New Colony, to see what humanity has become, to see if your mercy was wasted. 6 hours later, walked through the streets of New Colony. The city was new but felt ancient somehow. It combined human architecture with designs from the 3 species they'd helped. Style gardens grew alongside earth plants and alien flowers. The captain he'd seen earlier served as his guide. We named the city after a place on Earth, she explained. Was destroyed in the climate wars. We rebuilt it there. Now we've built it here among the stars. It's our way of remembering where we came from. You honor your mistakes, asked. We honor our growth, corrected. We were violent, destructive, almost suicidal as a species, but we changed. Not because we were forced to, because we chose to. They entered a large building. Inside saw humans and 3 other species working together, building, creating, learning from each other. The pointed to small, furry beings. We found them 50 years ago. Stone Age technology, afraid of the stars. Now they're some of our best engineers. You didn't judge them, asked. Why would we? They never hurt anyone. They just needed a chance to grow. Looked at him. Like we did. In the center of the building was a memorial. Approached it slowly. It listed 63 names, the species that had destroyed. We found them all, said softly. Every world you cleansed. We documented what happened. We're trying to preserve their histories, their cultures, so they're not forgotten. His eyes dimmed with sorrow. Why? Because someone should remember them. Someone should say their names and acknowledge that they existed, that they mattered. Turned to him. You granted us mercy. We're trying to understand why you couldn't grant them the same. That evening met with and in private. They sat in a garden overlooking the colony, watching the sun set. You've surpassed us, admitted. In 100 years, you've achieved what took us 500. Your technology, your expansion, your civilization, it's remarkable. Thank you, said. But that's not why you're troubled, is it? Was silent for a long moment. When I was young, I believed in the Concord's mission. I believed we were protecting the galaxy. But after I granted you mercy, I began to doubt. I started reviewing the records of the species we destroyed. He looked up at the stars. They weren't all violent, they weren't all dangerous. Some were just young, ignorant, making the same mistakes every young species makes, and we killed them for it. So why did you grant us mercy? Asked. A child's drawing said, in the ruins of Singapore, a simple picture of someone reaching for the stars. I saw it and remembered being young, dreaming of the sky. I remembered that we were once like you, and I couldn't destroy that dream. What happened to the species that granted your people mercy? Asked. Silence was answer enough. You killed them, said. It wasn't a question. Not I, said, but yes. The Concord killed them, after they taught us everything, after they showed us the stars. We decided we didn't need teachers anymore. We took their place as judges of the galaxy. The three of them sat in silence as the stars came out above them. Finally spoke, I must return to the Concord. I must report what I've seen here. And what will you report? Asked. The truth. That humanity has become what we claim to be but never were, that you're strong enough to show mercy, that you break the cycle we've perpetuated for thousands of years. Stood looking old and tired. But I must warn you, the Conquered will not be pleased. Many will see you as a threat. They may decide to destroy you before you become too powerful. Stood as well, let them try. You don't understand, said. The Conquered commands thousands of ships, hundreds of worlds. We understand, said gently. We've been preparing for this since the day you left. We knew mercy might not be enough, that we might have to fight for our survival. She smiled sadly. But we also know something you don't. We've been talking to the species you've subjugated, the ones you conquered and control. They're tired of your judgment too. If it comes to war, we won't be alone. Left the next morning. As his ship departed, he looked back at the human colony, at the impossible civilization they'd built. He'd granted them mercy once, expecting them to fail. Instead, they'd succeeded beyond his wildest dreams. And now that mercy might destroy everything they had built. The Grand Council chamber was ancient. It had stood for 3,000 years, witness to countless judgments and decisions. Today, it would witness something new. Stood before the assembled judges, his report displayed for all to see. Images of human cities, fleet compositions, population numbers. The faces of the other species humans had helped rather than enslaved. This is impossible, High Executor declared. No species develops this quickly. They must have stolen our technology. They developed it themselves, replied calmly. I this personally. Their science is different from ours but equally advanced, in some areas more advanced. The chamber erupted in argument, waited for silence. The question before us is simple, he continued. What do we do about humanity? They have proven themselves worthy of the mercy I granted. They have exceeded every expectation. They follow a philosophy of cooperation rather than domination. They are a threat, shouted. Can you not see? In 100 years they will surpass us completely. In 200 they will control half the galaxy. We must act now while we still can. Act how? Demanded. Destroy a species that has done nothing wrong. Prove that our mercy was a lie. Our mercy was a mistake, said coldly. You should have cleansed them when you had the chance. Now we must correct your error before it's too late. The council voted. The result was close, but the decision was made. They would send a diplomatic mission to Earth to negotiate. Knew what that meant. Delay and distract the humans while preparing for war. On Earth, Ambassador received the message with suspicion. He was young for such an important position, but he'd been raised in the post-contact world. He'd studied his entire life. They want to negotiate, he told the Earth Council. They're sending an embassy within the month. "That's good, isn't it?" someone asked. "No," said from the back of the room. She was intelligence director, responsible for monitoring all threats to humanity. "It's a delaying tactic. The question is, what are they delaying for?" She pulled up star charts. "We've detected increased fleet movements in their core territories, ships being pulled from patrol duties, resources being redirected. They're preparing for something." "For war," said quietly. The room fell silent. "How long do we have?" the council leader asked. "Unknown, could be months, could be days, but I recommend we go to high alert." While Earth prepared, worked in secret. She'd been digging into history for years, looking for anything that could help humanity. Now, with war possibly approaching, she dug deeper. She found it in an old database that she'd hacked months ago. A single file, heavily encrypted, hidden under layers of security. It took her 3 days to crack it. When she did, she sat back in her chair, stunned. "Oh my God," she whispered. The file contained records from 3,000 years ago, records of the species that had granted the mercy. The Builders, they were called, an ancient, peaceful race that had found young civilization and decided to help them. The Builders taught the everything: science, space travel, philosophy. They showed the stars and asked for nothing in return except that when they were ready, help other young species in the same way. But they grew ambitious. They learned everything the Builders could teach, and then they decided they didn't need teachers anymore. The file described it in clinical detail: the fleet attack, the Builder worlds burning, billions dead, an entire civilization erased in a matter of weeks. And then they took the Builders' place. They became the judges of the galaxy. But instead of helping young species like the Builders had helped them, they destroyed any species they deemed dangerous. The hypocrisy was staggering. Brought the file to immediately. He read it, his face growing pale. "This is it," he said. "This is what we need. Proof that they are everything they accuse others of being: violent, dangerous, ungrateful." "What do we do with it?" asked. "We wait," said. "We wait for the right moment." The moment came 2 weeks later. Appeared at its office late at night alone. He looked old and tired and afraid. "They're coming," he said without preamble. "Has assembled a strike fleet, 200 ships. They're going to destroy Earth and all your colonies. He's calling it a preemptive defense." Felt cold but kept his voice calm. "When?" "Soon, maybe days." The embassy was a lie, a distraction while they prepared. Looked at him with desperate eyes. "I'm sorry. I tried to stop it. I tried to make them see reason. But they're afraid of you, afraid of what you represent." "Which is?" "Everything they claim to be but aren't. Everything they destroyed the Builders for being." Smiled sadly. "We know about the Builders. We know what your people did to them." His eyes widened. "How?" "We're very good at finding secrets." Pulled up the file on his screen. "We know that we're granted mercy, that the Builders taught you everything, that you repaid them with genocide." "Then you understand," said. "The conquered cannot allow another species to surpass them. They did it once to the Builders. They'll do it again to you." "Not if we stop them first," said. The strike fleet assembled at the edge of space. 200 ships, the largest fleet they'd assembled in centuries, stood on the flagship bridge, confident in their superiority. "Today we correct a mistake," he told his commanders. "Today we cleanse the galaxy of the human threat. No mercy, no survivors. We will finish what should have been done 100 years ago." The fleet jumped to FTL, heading for Earth. They never made it. Halfway to Earth, they dropped out of FTL to find themselves surrounded. Human ships, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. They appeared from every direction, perfectly coordinated. Hal whispered, "How did they know?" Admiral's face appeared on every screen. "I am Admiral of United Earth Fleet. You have entered human space with hostile intent. You have come to destroy us without warning, without cause, without mercy." He paused. We were warned you were coming. We've been ready for this moment since the day left Earth 100 years ago. We've prepared for the possibility that mercy wouldn't be enough, that we'd have to fight for our survival. You cannot defeat us, snarled. We are the conquered. We have ruled this galaxy for 3,000 years. You've ruled through fear, replied, through judgment and death, through destroying anyone who might challenge you. Then's voice joined the broadcast, and with it the file, the complete history of the builders, the mercy they showed, the genocide they committed in return. This is being broadcast across the entire galaxy, said. Every species you've conquered, every world you've subjugated, they're all hearing this right now. They're learning the truth about you. His face went pale, not just his face, every face on every ship. You built your empire on a lie, continued. You pretend to protect the galaxy, but you're the greatest threat in it. You murdered the species that saved you, and then you took their place and murdered 63 more species in their name. The human fleet moved closer. The weapons powered up. For a moment, everything hung in balance. Then spoke again. But we're not you. We were shown mercy once. We won't forget it. What was confused? We won't destroy you. We won't kill your crews. We won't be what you are. His voice was firm. But we won't let you threaten us either. Power down your weapons. Surrender your ships, or we will disable them and take them by force. But we won't kill you because we're better than that. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, the ships powered down. Their weapons went offline. Their shields dropped. They surrendered without a single shot fired. On Earth, in the council chamber, people watched in stunned silence as the most powerful fleet in the galaxy gave up. We did it, someone whispered. We actually did it. But didn't smile. He knew this was just the beginning. The conquered was more than one fleet, and now humanity had humiliated them. The real test was still to come. The galaxy changed overnight. The broadcast that revealed this true history reached every corner of known space. Species that had been conquered by them for centuries suddenly understood their oppressors were built on lies. The conquered didn't protect the galaxy. They controlled it through fear and violence. Within a week, the first rebellion started. A species conquered 500 years ago declared independence. Their military, trained and equipped by turned against their masters. Within a month, 12 more species had rebelled. Within 6 months, the conquered was collapsing. Stood on the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel Harmony's voice, watching a world below. Fires burned across the surface as rebels fought forces. The irony wasn't lost on her. They who had judged so many species for violence were now being consumed by it. We could stop this, her aide said quietly. Earth has the military power. We could force peace. At what cost? Asked. We'd become the new, imposing our will on the galaxy, deciding what's right and wrong. Is that what we want? Before her aide could answer, a communication came through. It was from the planet below, a rebel leader. Humanity, the voice said, we ask for your help, not your military, your wisdom. You defeated them without killing them. You showed mercy when you had the power to destroy. Teach us how to do the same. Smiled, sent a team down, but only advisors, only teachers. They must build their own peace. The same message came from dozens of worlds. Species that had lived under rule for centuries wanted to be free, but they didn't know how. They'd forgotten how to govern themselves. Humanity sent teachers, not soldiers, advisors, not conquerors. They helped build governments, establish trade, create peaceful transitions of power. It was slow, messy, sometimes it failed, but it was working. There was in chaos. The government had collapsed after its defeat. Different factions fought for control. Some wanted to rebuild the conquered. Others wanted to hide in shame. A few wanted revenge against humanity. Watched his world tear itself apart and felt only sorrow. He'd spent his life serving the conquered, believing in its mission. Now he knew it had all been a lie. A human ship appeared in orbit, expected weapons, expected demands. Instead, he received an invitation. His message said, "We need your help." He traveled to Earth, expecting to be put on trial. Instead, he was taken to Geneva, to the memorial that listed the 63 species that had destroyed. Met him there, along with a historian who had documented everything that happened since first contact. "We're building something new," told him. "A galactic council, not based on domination or judgment, but on cooperation, on helping each other grow." "Why are you telling me this?" asked. "Because we need the perspective," said. "You made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but you also granted humanity mercy when you didn't have to. That matters." "My mercy nearly destroyed you," said bitterly. "Would have succeeded if not for your preparation." "But you warned us he was coming," reminded him. "You betrayed your own people to save us. Why?" Looked at the memorial, at all the names. "Because I was tired of being part of the cycle, tired of the killing. When I saw what humanity had become, I saw what the should have been, what the builders wanted us to be." "Then help us build that," said. "Help us create a galaxy where species are helped, not judged, where mercy is the rule, not the exception." "How can I?" asked. "My people hate me, I'm a traitor to them." "You're a teacher to us," said gently. "Teach us about the mistakes you made so we don't repeat them. Help us understand the perspective, be part of building something better." Spent the rest of his life on Earth. He taught at universities. He advised the Galactic Council. He wrote extensively about the Conquered's history, both the good and the terrible. But mostly, he talked to children. They would ask him about the stars, about aliens, about what it was like to be able to judge entire species. He would tell them the truth, that judging others is easy, that showing mercy is hard, that real strength comes from choosing compassion over vengeance. One day, a small human girl asked him, "Do you regret granting humanity mercy?" Thought for a long moment. "No," he finally said. "I regret that I didn't grant it to the 63 species before you. I regret that I waited so long to see the truth, but I don't regret saving humanity. You've become what we should have been." 3 years after the Conquered's collapse, Commander led the first mission to find survivors of the species that had cleansed. It was a long shot. The cleansings had been thorough, but humanity had found something they didn't know about: hidden bases, siege ships sent out by desperate species trying to preserve their people, small colonies that had survived in hiding for centuries. Found the first survivors on a frozen moon orbiting a dead world. They were the species had shown Minu all those years ago. Fewer than 10,000 remained, living in sealed habitats, waiting to die. "We thought we were the last," their leader said when his team arrived. "We thought everyone else was gone." "You're not alone anymore," told them. "We're here to help." Over the next decade, humanity found survivors from 16 of the 63 cleansed species. Some were tiny populations, a few hundred or thousand. Others had managed to preserve more, tens of thousands in hidden colonies. Humanity brought them to safe worlds, gave them resources, helped them rebuild, asked for nothing in return. "Why?" a survivor asked. "Why save us? You don't know us, we can't repay you." "Because someone showed us mercy once," replied. "We're paying it forward." 20 years after they came to judge humanity, completed her historical account. She called it The Mercy Cycle, How Humanity Turned Judgment into Legend. The document detailed everything: first contact, humanity's rise, the discovery of the crimes, the confrontation, the choice to show mercy rather than vengeance. But it also detailed what came after: the Galactic Council, the rescued species, the peaceful integration of into the new galactic community. Was old now. She'd spent her entire adult life documenting this transformation. On her final day in the office, she added one last passage. "They came to judge us," she wrote. "They found us violent, destructive, barely worthy of existence. They granted us mercy and we transformed ourselves. We could have used our strength to destroy them in return, to become the new judges, the new oppressors. Instead, we chose a different path. We chose to remember that we were once the species being judged, that we were once the ones deemed unworthy, and we chose to grant the same mercy we received, not just but to every species we encountered. It became a legend, a cautionary tale of how the powerful can fall, how an empire built on fear and judgment will eventually crumble. Children across the galaxy learn about them in schools. They learn about the builders who showed mercy. They learn about the 63 species who were destroyed. They learn about the one species that was spared. And humanity became a legend too, not for our weapons or our technology, not for our expansion or our power, but for our choice. The choice to show mercy when we had every right to seek vengeance. The choice to help rather than hurt. The choice to break the cycle. 30 years after first contact, the galaxy looked different. The Galactic Council included over 100 species, not subjects, not conquered peoples, partners, equals. They were rebuilding, not as an empire but as a single world among many. They taught others about their mistakes. They worked to make amends for their crimes. It would take generations, but they were trying. The 16 revived species were thriving. Given worlds and resources, they grew. They remembered who saved them. They called humanity the merciful ones. In classrooms across 1,000 worlds, children learned the same story. The story of the who judged and killed. The story of humanity who was judged and spared. The story of how mercy can change everything. A young alien child, name impossible to pronounce in human languages, raised her hand in class one day. "Teacher," she asked, "what did the humans teach us?" The teacher, whose grandparents had been rescued by mission, smiled. That mercy is not weakness. That being strong enough to show compassion is greater than being strong enough to destroy. That cycles can be broken. The child thought about that. But they were strong too. Why couldn't they do it? Because strength without wisdom is just violence, the teacher replied. They had strength. Humanity had wisdom. They used their strength to show mercy. That's why they're legends now. Far away on Earth, sat in his small apartment and looked out at the stars. He was dying. He knew it. His species' long life was finally ending. But he wasn't afraid. He thought about that day 130 years ago, when he stood in the ruins of Singapore and saw a child's drawing, a small figure reaching for the stars. He'd granted humanity mercy based on that simple image. And humanity had proven that mercy was not weakness, it was strength, the greatest strength. A message arrived, from she was old too, nearly at her own end. She wrote, "I thought you should know. We're naming the new Galactic Council headquarters after you, the Center for Peace and Understanding, because without your mercy none of this would exist." Read the message and, for the first time in decades, felt peace. "I thought I granted you mercy," he said quietly to himself, "but instead you granted me redemption." He looked at the stars, at the lights of thousands of ships moving between worlds, at the civilization built on mercy and cooperation. "They judged you and found you wanting," he whispered, remembering the memorial on Earth. "You judged them and found them worthy, and you became legends." The stars shone bright above Earth that night, brighter than ever before, because humanity had learned the hardest lesson of all. That mercy, given freely to those who don't deserve it, can transform the entire galaxy. That legends are not built on conquest or violence. They're built on the strength to show compassion, on the courage to break the cycle, on the wisdom to turn judgment into mercy, and mercy into legend.